Hey guys, I got a special guest here today. We have Dr. Fawad Mian. He's the regenerative medicine doctor. So, Doc, we're so excited to have you on the podcast today. For the first question, it's a lot of people I'm talking to, especially the ones that are a little bit older, are very concerned about Alzheimer's, dementia,
Mhm,
memory.
mhm.
What are some things we can do in our day-to-day lives, or how can we just be more proactive about our memory?
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that. But I think, when it comes to memory, it's being as proactive as you can earlier on, not waiting till the very end when things are harder to treat. But I think when we're younger, a lot of things that tend to get overlooked are, how are we sleeping at night? Are we getting enough rest? Now, that's important for cognition and memory too. That's really important. And unfortunately, a lot of times we tend to be on our computers or phones, and that kind of causes disrupted sleep. So getting away from the electronics is really important earlier on. Um, the thing that's always talked about in healthcare is exercise.
Yeah.
It's really important because actually, when you exercise, what happens, there's increased blood flow to the brain. And so it increases volume of the gray matter. And so you're able to have more volume there and you'll have better memory retention ultimately.
Oh, wow.
So that's actually really important. So it's not just, okay, I'm going to need to lose some weight, I need to lose the spare tire a few pounds. Exercise is really that important. It's also important for your brain, amongst many other things too, as well.
Absolutely. So when you talk about sleep and you're like, no phones, lower electronics,
Mhm.
is that like an hour before, 30 minutes before? I just want to ask that because for the audience, it gives them super actionable steps of, hey, we can do this, this, and this, and like we can take it away from this.
Yeah, so I would say at least bare minimum, like an hour beforehand.
Okay.
Ideally, I would say more on the 2 hour mark, but at
Oh,
least
really?
that really gives you a chance to unwind because what happens, especially with your phone, you're constantly scrolling on social media, your email, you're thinking about tomorrow, rather than just kind of like letting things be and relaxing and getting to sleep ultimately. So that's probably a very quick thing people can do. I just give you an example of we're in the Northeast, and there was Superstorm Sandy that occurred back about 13 years ago, and some patients we did see had insomnia. And
Okay.
they said there was absolutely no way that they could fall asleep. Doesn't matter what they did, what they took. But guess what happened? When the power was out for about a good week or so, by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, these people were fast asleep,
It reset their whole circadian rhythm.
their whole circadian rhythm. And so that's how disruptive these devices are to us.
Oh my God. That's incredible. And no one takes it seriously. It's
Yeah.
comical.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, we're used to it. I mean, I'm a little bit older. I can remember a time when we didn't have any of these things, and if it was TV, the thing that kept people up, but now it's just more you have it like right in your hand. So that makes just a huge difference, just getting away from that, at least for an hour before bedtime.
And what do you think about some of the tracking devices that kind of
Mm.
tell you sleep scores? Is that the Whoop, Fitbit, any of those? Are those good, bad?
I
You
think,
don't you
I think it's a good step in the right direction. I mean, there's the Oura Ring and all those things that are out there
of
too as
course.
well. I feel like the jury's still out on it, like a little bit. Just it doesn't mean that you couldn't, but I think what also happens too as well, there could always be some level of inaccuracy to these devices, but some people might be so focused on that, it becomes anxiety provoking to them. So, they're like, oh my God, well, what's my data going to show tomorrow kind of thing.
I, I've had this so I've been wearing the Fitbit for probably 5 years.
Hmm.
And I'm a big fan of it. I like the sleeping, I like the scores, but the big thing that I've talked to people about, they're like, if you get a very low score on some area that should be higher, you'll feel like you're going to have a bad day.
Hmm.
And that's a challenge that a lot of people are constantly juggling with, where they're like, I'm going in the right direction, I'm going in the wrong direction. And it becomes
Hmm.
very, very challenging. So it's really what's best for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but, sometimes I would say don't hyper focus on what's there all the time because some of it also could be inaccurate. And then it honestly, it really does, kind of adversely affect your day and your mentality for the day or even for the week.
Absolutely. And how much sleep should people be getting on a normal basis?
For most people, between 6 to 8 hours a night.
Okay.
There are some people that genetically are called short sleepers, and those are the people that I kind of envy, but they sleep maybe like 4 or 5 hours, and they're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed early in the morning, and they're up and early, and they got energy.
Yeah.
That's the exception rather than the rule. But ideally, most people 6 8 hours. What happens for a lot of people, and this is also something that affects memory, is that when people are constantly restricting their sleep throughout the week, they're just tired and their concentration becomes worse, their memory becomes worse, and then they kind of have to do the sleep rebound thing at the end of the week on the weekend to try to get back to where they were, and then the cycle starts again. So we kind of have to be more consistent about our wake up time and our sleep times.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me that kind of broke through was me realizing that staying up till 11 p.m. for
Mhm.
staying up to 9 p.m. had the same net result. I'm like, you're not getting more done.
Mhm.
Like if I trade in those 2 hours at nighttime for 2 hours in the morning,
Mhm.
I'll just have a better experience. So
Yeah.
that's what I started doing. And people say like go with follow the sun. When the sun
Mhm.
goes down, you go to sleep. When the sun rises, you wake up. Like that is very true. It becomes a much better experience.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely attest to that because we have chickens in our backyard. So we're
Oh, that's
glad.
awesome.
Yeah, and so I mean, you look at if you go out at night, the chickens are in the coop. They're not outside.
Yeah.
They're like done for the day. But as soon as the sun cracks in the morning, then they're out.
Yeah. And it makes a big difference. So for you, regenerative, what does that even mean and how'd you get involved with that?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit first of how I got involved with this. A lot of it kind of came from my own injuries.
Oh, really?
So when I started practice out on my own long time ago, I would notice a lot of people with their own injuries and presumed neurological issues, and the orthopedic docs and pain docs were saying, "Hey, this is neurological." When in reality, these people had multiple, rotator cuff issues, various knee issues, various neck issues that really needed to be addressed, and they weren't looked at very carefully. I was trying to find a solution for that. At the same time, one of the first injuries that I had was I was lifting weights and I was doing some shoulder shrugs with some heavy weight, and I let the weight slip a little bit, and I injured my AC joint, which is that smaller joint in the front of your shoulder over here.
Oh, wow.
So I was in so much pain where I couldn't, put my arm above my head. I couldn't sleep on it. Um, couldn't really exercise, and I love exercising. I felt miserable, and it really hurt. And so I did what anybody else would do: is I went to the orthopedic doctor. The orthopedic doctor, one of the first things that he says, well, hopefully we can get a surgery out of you after we get the imaging. I'm like, that's not the first thing that I want to hear when I go see the surgeon, but that's kind of what he's thinking. Ultimately, I didn't have any tears of the internal tissue and cartilage and all of that, but I did have a lot of arthritis here. So I got a couple of steroid injections in here, gave you maybe temporary relief, but actually made my joint look worse. I'd probably weared
Really?
away some of the ligament when I looked on the ultrasound later on. And I still couldn't sleep very well. I still couldn't lift weights. I'm like, at that point, he's like, you know what? Maybe we just got to chop off part of the bone and that'll like help alleviate that. I'm like, I want to come into this, I came into this world with all of these tissues and bones. I want to leave with the same thing.
Yeah.
And this guy's talking about chopping out, part of my bone, and it kind of sounds kind of barbaric. At the same time, I started having foot and ankle issues. I started developing plantar fasciitis. One day, I started walking, my foot started hurting.
Okay.
I had lived in like New York City for training for a couple of years, so I walked a ton in dress shoes,
Yeah.
things like that. And for whatever reason, when I moved to New Jersey, then just one day I started walking and just my foot started hurting.
Oh, wow.
And then I did what anybody else would do. I went to the foot doctor. Foot doctor, let's take some x-rays. Let's get you some orthotics, which actually hurt more than the actual pain I was having.
Yeah.
I went through a couple of treatments and then he gave me some steroid injections for my foot as well. I was like, great, steroids are fantastic. They make everything better.
Yeah.
So I got a few of those and I'm like, okay, I actually feel a bit better now. It still hurts, but I feel better. You know what? I'm going to go running on the treadmill. That was a really bad mistake because now at that point, after I was done on the treadmill, my foot and ankle hurt like crazy. And I had injured my Achilles tendon now at this point.
Oh my God.
So at this point, I'm like, okay, I can barely, it's hard for me to walk. My shoulder hurts because of the biomechanical disruption of everything. The surgery that I did have on my left knee when I tore my ACL started acting up.
Yeah.
So now this is the third thing or fourth thing I should say that's actually happening to me. Later on, I found out that the ACL repair that they did in my knee
Yeah.
Didn't really take very well because there's no ACL.
Oh
Just
wow.
scar tissue holding my knee together where it's like a pseudo ACL almost.
Oh wow.
And so at that point, I was like, okay, the surgeon wanted to scope my knee. Barely looking at me, he kind of just tugged on my knee, like, let me put a scope in there, we'll take a look, and maybe clean some stuff out because that's kind of what they do. I started looking into different alternative therapies, and there really weren't a whole lot of resources back then, like 2011, 2012, as they are now.
Yeah.
And so, I stumbled across something called prolotherapy and platelet-rich plasma were the initial things. So I started learning some of that, and I went to some conferences. Had gotten my Achilles injected, which actually helped to a certain extent. I'd gotten PRP for my plantar fasciitis. It took 2 rounds to help undo what the steroids did, and my foot pain got better. I had gone to some other people to get PRP in my Achilles. It was feeling better, but still not quite the same. And so at that point, that's actually when I started treating myself.
Oh wow.
Treating my own Achilles, and I had to do multiple rounds of that to get it better. Now I don't wear any Frankenstein shoes. I can walk normally. I can run
Yeah.
a treadmill. No problem with that. In terms of the shoulder that I had, I did some PRP and prolotherapy in that joint. And I did a couple of rounds of that to help undo the steroids. And now I have no problems doing this or sleeping on my shoulder or lifting weights. I didn't need to get anything
Oh wow.
chopped out at all. That was being suggested for me too as well. And now the ligaments look better when I looked on the ultrasound. The joint was still a bit gnarled up from the steroids, but at least the ligaments that are holding things together actually are a lot better.
Yeah.
And then in terms of my knee, I still also had to do some PRP and prolotherapy to help undo some of that. I would say I don't have an ACL in there, but my knee is completely functional at this point, even though it's not quite where it needed to be ultimately. But I'm able to lift weights, I'm able to run, I feel a lot better. And so as time went along, I started implementing more and more, did more and more training and implementing with my patients, and was able to see remarkable improvements in people who were told they need to have surgeries or they need to use strong medications, narcotics, pain medications to get through their day. And so for me, this was kind of more inspirational because it's something that helped me overcome my problems, helped overcome my patients' problems. I've used it even with my own family, to my own wife, to father-in-law, even my own mom. I
Wow.
even did it on my mom. She's skeptical of everything. So when I did it on her, she was like, I don't know what you did, but like in about like a month, I have been limping for the last 2 months, and now I'm not limping anymore, and it feels good.
What is this? What is pH? Like, what are these PRP? Like, what are these?
Yeah, so platelet-rich plasma basically is just when we take out our own blood, we concentrate the platelets and the growth factors in there. And then we use image guidance, typically like ultrasound or fluoroscopy, which is either an ultrasound or an X-ray, to inject them back into the areas of damage. And what they do is they help orchestrate areas of healing. So they release growth factors from the cells, and the cells will help tell tissues to go where to go. It'll help recruit other cells to try to help heal the tissues.
Oh,
Uh,
so it's already in your body. You're just relocating it.
you're relocating things and you're harnessing the power of that. Autologous stem cell therapy, which can come from the bone marrow or from fat too, as well, does the same thing, but more on a robust scale with everything. And they're really telling where everything needs to go.
So is that kind of what's going on with? Because don't some other countries do like stem cell stuff, or is that?
Yeah. So, with stem cells, that's a lot to unpack because, there are different types of stem cell therapies.
Yeah.
The ones that are, approved for use in the US or autologous bone marrow, where we harvest that from your backside. And then also fat, which is just like a mini, basically harvesting like a mini liposuction to a certain extent. And then PRP, obviously, we're drawing blood. But there are also other types of stem cells that people think of, and those are the ones where you get from like umbilical cords or
Oh wow.
tissue, yeah, like that. And those are the ones that we steer clear of because, first of all, a lot of the products that come in bottles that people were using at one point didn't have any viable cells. Everything was dead in there. There was no stem cells in there.
Oh wow.
Plus, at the same time, they can also cause a lot of inflammation in the body sometimes.
Okay.
And that can cause problems ultimately for those people who are getting like IV stem cells, like in other countries with those kinds of tissues. What happens is that some of that can get trapped in the lung and then cause blood clots and inflammation in the body. And
My
so,
God.
yeah, so those ones people have to be leery of. There are some trials that are being done with things like bone marrow and fat for IV stem cells, but that's still like in preliminary stage.
Early. Yeah, no, it's really interesting because the big thing I learned is that whatever doctor you go to, they're gonna recommend what they do. Like,
Hmm.
even if you don't need it, like surgery, yes, surgery, regenerative, like, but
Hmm.
like you have to be so aware of this bias as like an individual.
Hmm.
Then you start to realize, like, hey, what do I really want? And everyone's like, literally, there was a text today where they're like, I got an MRI and now I got to go see the doctor for
Hmm.
this surgery, and it's like,
Hmm.
no, you can do surgery on that body part. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's just, it makes us realize that there's a lot more out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How
And I
have
think,
you? Yeah, you go.
well, I was also going to say is that, not everybody has to, not everybody has to do, regenerative treatments too as well, because sometimes just the most basic stuff can help depending on the situation. Normally we take a look at a patient, we examine them, we look at the images, review everything, and then decide, is this the right thing for them to do? But there are plenty of people who come in who have maybe some more minor issues. And then ultimately what happens is that, physical therapy, maybe acupuncture, there are like red light therapy, shockwave treatments, there are other things that can be done as well that are non-invasive, and that might be good enough for somebody for more minor issues.
Yeah. And what would like an issue? When would someone know if it's like, hey, maybe I should go to a regenerative doctor, or maybe I should go to
Hmm.
the orthopedic? Like, when do people even know this? Because I feel like we have a range of I'm in a lot of pain, or I have no pain, or it's tolerable.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, it depends, right? The gender bias is that the male basically will let things keep going until things will inevitably just fall apart at some point, till they're kind of at that other extreme, whereas females obviously are more in tune to things and better about knowing how their body feels and all that, and they'll seek help earlier, in general. But when the pain becomes just, it is becoming debilitating, and it becomes to the point where it is affecting your daily functioning. So, say for instance, it was your knee and you're going up and down the stairs, and you're having a real hard time going up and down the stairs. Say where you live requires that. Maybe you got to get groceries, go up and down the stairs, or maybe where you work or you have
Yeah,
kids. That's kind of really when you need to seek things out and not wait till it gets to the point where you can't walk whatsoever.
yeah,
And at that point, obviously there you can still, if you're kind of not wanting to go towards a surgical route, a regenerative medicine doctor would be a good start for somebody. If
yeah,
somebody says, hey, you know what? Slice me open, let me do surgery, then there are people who are like that. I've had people like that. Then we send them to, we send them to the surgeon. That's kind of say, hey, you can get your surgical opinion and then see if that's the best thing for you ultimately.
absolutely, absolutely. So one of the big things I do is I have Edwards Consulting, which is my company, and we have
Hmm.
5 pillars, which are
Hmm.
mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships. And
Hmm.
something I've been doing recently on the podcast is asking guests, what is their mental health like? What is their physical health like? And the reason for that is because then the audience receives it well. And this
Hmm.
could just be today. It doesn't have to be like every single day, but
Hmm.
you basically give a number 1 to 10 and then a reason why. And if it's a little bit better, maybe you give a few examples and we'll figure it out. But your
Hmm.
mental health, what's your mental health like today? On
I would say
1 to 10.
9.5.
9.5. That might be the highest score ever. Why is it 9.5?
Because, despite no matter whatever happens, I always try to keep a positive attitude and keep working towards goals. And that's how I view things every day.
I like
And so
it.
today is no different than any other day.
I'm
So I'm on the podcast with you, so that was a good thing too as well. So I was excited about today.
absolutely. And what causes you to like when did you have this switch where you're like, I'm gonna pick a good I'm not gonna dictate whatever happens to me as a good or bad day. I'm deciding it's a good day. Like when did this flip really happen for you?
I think the flip is something that you kind of always continually work on too as well, because it's, to train yourself in that way. But I think really in the last 2 years, I feel like that's been more of the flip. And I actively work on it because that's something where you're trying to train your mind to work in the positive rather than the negative, because in the world with everything, we tend to have a negative lens for things, especially when something happens. And then if something else happens, then it's like everything is going wrong and the world is against
Yes.
you. And then that's kind of it's
So
don't.
how do you practice it just for the audience so that they could have
Yeah.
yeah.
So one of the things I do, there are a couple of different things. There's Tony Robbins priming, which I've done before. It's a little bit on the longer end of things, but can be very good, especially if you're consistent. There are going to be smaller versions of that. Sometimes it's just meditation, with certain types of meditation music too as well. And you
Yeah.
do that when there's no other disruption. There's nobody talking to you. The lighting is darker. You can let your mind really focus at that point. And then you kind of focus on something positive, and then everything kind of rushes into you at that point.
Oh wow.
You feel a bit more positive about things.
That's awesome. And the priming, real quick, like 1 minute. I
Mhm.
know what the priming is, but
Yeah,
if the audience is curious, I know it's a like an hour long thing. It takes like 15 minutes, but
right,
just
right.
quick.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of first thing you do is you start off with three things that you're grateful for that day, and you focus on those things. You don't just go, okay, I'm grateful for this. You think about it. You actually try to visualize it in your head. And then when you're visualizing that event, whatever it was, or whatever how small it was, you're actually going through it. You're appreciating it, and you're going from one to the other. So you're actually spending time on that. And that's like the first part of it. The next part of it is kind of some people might find it a little hokey to a certain extent, but it kind of revolves around just positive energy. In this case, he talks about lights and things like that, but just positive energy that's kind of flowing through you, and focusing on that, and then sending it out to people that you love or people that you care for.
I've actually gotten a ton because I've done the priming
Mhm.
before.
Yeah.
I that part is something that I am so bad at on my day
Mhm.
to day. But when
Yeah.
you do that activity, like Doc is completely right. Like you sit there and you're like, it's a little weird, but then at the same time, you're like, I have unlimited energy. I can help
Mhm.
whoever. I'm
Mhm.
gonna try to think about everyone in my life in a positive light and
Right.
give them what they need. And then you start seeing these positive things throughout your day.
Yeah. And so that's part of it. And then the last part of it that he kind of talks about is think of three outcomes that you want to see within the next, say, 6 to 12 months, and imagine that they are accomplished, that they're done.
Yeah,
Imagine how that feels. Imagine having gone through that. What do your friends say? How does your family feel? How do you feel? What are you doing next? And so you're focusing on those three things, and you're stacking all of that together. Ultimately, really just kind of really pushes you up. And then at the very end, he talks about other things that you're grateful for to kind of bring into yourself. And then it kind of just gives you a ton of energy, and a positive focus ultimately, and a positive lens for everything that's in front of you.
absolutely. No, I highly recommend it. The reason I wanted him to explain that is just because I've done it and it's
Mhm.
super helpful and it really does get you in the right headspace, especially when you feel like you're going a mile a minute and you have to do everything. And this
Mhm.
is something where it takes 10 minutes, you sit down, you breathe, and you're like,
Mhm.
this is clarity. This is
Yeah.
so I think I appreciate the rec. Physical health. What's your physical health on a 1 to 10? Again, if there's any tips or tricks.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's an 8 because my kids kept me up, so I feel a little tired. Um, but on my physical health, the thing that I try to focus on is, what I harped on before is exercise. And, it's not so much that you're going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger lifting hundreds of pounds kind of thing, or you're running a marathon, five or six. It's kind of working your way up, but it's being consistent. Consistency goes a long way in many things in our lives. Exercise is no different because the exercise will help with our physical, with our mental health, our brain health ultimately. So I try to make it a point where I'm consistent about my exercise.
So what's consistent look like to you? If you were to pick and
Consistent, yeah, consistent for me kind of ranges between 4 to 5 times a week of exercise, and that'll consist of at least weights for 4 days out of those weeks, plus cardio combined with that, and then a fifth day where I'm doing some miscellaneous cardio or exercise along with that.
and
You
is
know,
this like 40 minutes? Is this like an hour, 2 hours?
yeah, yeah. So for me, I try to keep it like within an hour
Yeah,
range. I'd rather do that than scroll on my phone or watch TV or anything like that. Ultimately, uh,
absolutely.
yeah. So I feel definitely better doing it that way. And I don't always get to like the fifth day all the time, but I definitely try to work towards that, strive towards that, but I definitely feel better when I have at least 5 days of exercise.
Absolutely. One of the tips I'll leave everyone with is I recently got this it's basically a walking treadmill. It was like $100 on Amazon.
Mhm.
And like you were saying, whether you're scrolling, watching TV, like you can literally just put it down in your house and you just walk and you're walking while you're watching the television. It's like the same
Mhm.
thing, but you're getting steps in, which is
Mhm.
always super helpful.
Yeah.
Because I know it can be challenging when you're like, I don't want to walk outside. It's too hot. It's too
Yeah.
cold. It's too this. It's too that. So
Yeah.
this was a super easy alternative. Um, the next one, community service philanthropy. Some
Mhm.
people are super active, some people are not active at all. Do you ever think about this, or how do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we always try to work towards, working with communities and the hospitals and things like that. So I can just give you an example on the regenerative medicine side. So, an active community service, which also was some level of training for us. But, we did a medical mission to Honduras
Oh, wow.
roughly about like 11 years ago. I guess 11 years ago, maybe. Just forgetting the year. Yeah, but roughly 11 years ago. And that was amazing because you had people who were very debilitated and they would wait hours to get treated over there. And they were extremely grateful that you even saw them and you did these treatments on them. And that's how much, in the group that was doing it had been doing it since I think the 60s and the 70s. So it's been
Oh,
a
wow.
long-standing thing.
That's incredible. And
Yeah.
what people don't realize is like you can do something like that,
Mhm.
something extreme like that, or you could do something like super small down the street where
Yeah.
like this person might need like one I've done before is like you go to the food store, you buy
Mhm.
some bananas, you buy some waters, you give it to the homeless people. And
Yeah.
like I appreciate that. Or you get them a if it's cold, especially in Jersey, it can get cold
Mhm.
sometimes. You get them a big jacket. Like it's like
Yeah.
$10 and people go, it's not, I need more money. I want to do more. And it's just like,
Hmm.
you're just telling yourself a story that's just not true. You can
Yeah.
do a lot of different things. So I appreciate you sharing that. And then
Yeah.
spirituality.
Hmm.
Some people are in, some people are out.
Yeah. So for me, that's really important, just doing daily prayers,
Okay.
and then meditation with that too as well.
So you
That's
kind of combine both.
Yeah, so I feel more grounded that way. It also helps more with a positive outlook and actually just, quite frankly, just lightens the heart, for whatever
Really?
goes on. Yeah, you feel lighter after you do it.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
what do you, is there like what prayer specific, is there like a book? Is there a thing just for anyone or is it just whatever
It's-
people?
I would just say, because obviously everybody has different faiths and some people are not even faith-based. I think it's, it'd be something that resonates with you, whatever prayer that is, so people can always, look at a book of prayers, no matter what religion they are, and they can pick a couple of them and focus on them, read them, understand them, and then maybe doing some meditation with some beads really at that point too as well, and they can pick the prayers they want. So it's really up to the individual ultimately, but it should always be like in their corner and their choice in terms of how they
Yeah,
do.
of course. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then the last one's relationships.
Hmm.
What do you think about relationships and yeah, this could be personal, business, life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, relationships, I think the thing that should be said is that any relationship, I think always requires some level of effort to maintain, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't just expect everything and not give anything back to people. But when there's a flow between people or whatnot, no matter whether it's business or personal or whatnot, that becomes a lot easier to maintain.
Yeah.
But there's some cases where, one person is having their issues or one business having their issues and the other one's kind of, helping them, or, they're being their better client or whatnot and sticking with them. So that's kind of when things require a little bit more effort. So I think they're always like a little bit of a give and take with that. But, just keeping a positive mindset and, making sure the relationship also is the right thing for you, no matter whether it's business or personal, is also really important because sometimes those relationships, no matter, may eventually may not be something that ultimately does you very good in the long run, whether
Yeah.
it's
You're
business
bringing
or
you're
personal.
you're bringing up a really good point about like what serves you and
Mhm.
when you start to take real inventory of like who you are, what you want to be,
Mhm.
maybe a 20-year relationship might not serve you. That does
Mhm.
you should not be friends with someone.
Hmm.
Do business with someone just because you're like, we've known each other this long. Because the
Yeah.
knowing of time is, I find it perplexing sometimes because you can literally meet someone and have a 5 day immersion with them, which is kind of a weird thing, but
Mhm.
so in the personal development world, stuff happens
Yeah.
like that. And you could get to know them better than someone because you might have a 20-year relationship with someone, but they might be from high school and you might see
Mhm.
them one time a year or once every other year. If you
Mhm.
hang out with that person 5 days in a row, you'll get to know them better than,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think you can meet a new person and you can know them, they can know you better, you can be more comfortable with them than someone that's known you longer?
I think that's always, I mean, I think that's always possible. It may not always be the case, but it's certainly possible. There's some people that, you may resonate better with ultimately. And then the other thing with that too as well is that sometimes when you don't know that person and it's just kind of off in the periphery and he or she has no interconnection with anybody else, sometimes, quite frankly, it's just easier to spill the
Be
beans and
open.
talk more, and it's easier for that person as opposed to, well, if I say this to this person, that's going to get to this person, they'll come back around and they'll say this about me, kind of thing. And I've seen that happen too as well.
That's very, see, that's why I wanted to ask because
Yeah.
that's a very good observation where it's just, if someone doesn't know you, not attached, less judgment, like just
Mhm.
straight up less judgment. And
Yeah.
that's a cool thing. Um, so for you, what have you seen with the regenerative medicine world? I know you started in 2011, 2012. It's been a good 13 years.
Mhm.
I know about regenerative medicine. I hear about it all the time. It's becoming way more in the mainstream.
Mhm.
Where do you think like, what's the progress you've seen, and then where do you see this going?
Well, I think it's progressed a lot because now there's been a lot more research and trials on it. So there's a lot more data than there ever was years ago. So that's positive, and everybody's working towards that ultimately. So I think that's a positive thing. I think the other thing that's the field is moving toward is more concentration of what's being used. So kind of like how you say, if you have a certain condition, a certain dosage of medication may need to be given. Also trying to see as well for different conditions like osteoarthritis of the knee or rotator cuff tears, what would be the optimal dosage of PRP or the stem cells that are being used. So that's being studied and researched more now.
Are you saying per person, or are you saying like because we're obviously two different people, so
Yeah.
you're saying
So,
like I would get an individualized amount that would be towards me, or you're saying more of like a generic, hey, you're a 50-year-old man,
well,
five.
it would be stratified more based on like age and condition. So say for the knee, depending on age, condition, loss of cartilage.
Okay,
So for now, at least, there's been some research that shows like a certain platelet dose count of like 10 billion is more optimal for knee osteoarthritis than ones that are lower. Those people tend to do worse. Uh, so,
interesting.
so I think that's going to be stratified more and more as the years go on.
Absolutely. And then would you say America's doing well in this, or are there other countries that are kind of ahead of this, or is it just kind of like everyone's kind of moving along? Just because I hear about this more in foreign countries from time to
Mhm.
time.
Well, the thing with this, you got to realize is that the way things are done medically, like in our country, is that it's very slow at
Okay.
everything. It takes, for instance, let's take like a medication for anything that goes out on the market. I'm not talking about COVID drugs or anything like that,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, of course.
in general,
Normal.
most medications that go on the market will be, anywhere between like 5 to 10 years at least, before they're there, before they're put out on the market ultimately, because it's a lot of research and some of that also can be affected by, the pharmaceutical companies and how they're massaging the research and all that or whatnot. But it takes a long time for something to happen. Whereas in a lot of other countries, the governments are still keeping a keen eye on everything, but they're more innovative and they're not as restrictive in terms of innovation.
Yeah,
And so that's probably why you're hearing about it more so in the other countries than you do over here.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, what do you see for the future of regenerative? Do you see this being like a primary doctor, like where people start utilizing it? Like
Mm.
what are you seeing in that direction?
Well, I think it still has to be somebody that's specially trained for it because, even for me, I always continually learn or whatnot. But, there's a lot that needs to go into like figuring out what you need to treat, what you're looking at, and everything like that. So you need specialized training for it ultimately. I kind of went the backdoor way of doing it. There's fellowships and things like that some people are getting trained in their larger organizations, and so all of that is really important. But I think, in years to come, I think it'll become more ubiquitous where it becomes easier to find somebody and get treatments versus, the way it is now, where, it's definitely harder or it may not be quite as accessible, particularly in certain states.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know we're coming to the end, but you just brought it up. You went a different path.
Hmm.
And the reason I'm saying this is not for, it's for your path and your learning, but it's really for everyone else that's like,
Hmm.
oh my God, do I need to pivot? Am I doing the right thing?
Hmm.
Like you went through medical school, you went to do that's many, many years. Most people would not go, yeah, I'm gonna go try this other thing. Like
Hmm.
it's in my field, but it was probably risky at the time. You're like, what am I doing? And you probably got judgment from people around you. You probably
Hmm.
didn't get accepted. Like
Hmm.
it can be very challenging. So,
Hmm.
what would you recommend to the people that are listening that are like, there's something calling me? It's not the conventional path, it's slightly different, but I do want to make my mark.
You mean in terms of future doctors or patients?
Just it doesn't have to be doctors, it doesn't have to be patients. It could be someone in a different field trying something new. It could be anybody just who's in that moment of like, hey, I've gone really far down this path. I don't
Mhm.
know if this is what I want to do. I think I get more purpose with this
Mhm.
because you're really aligned with your purpose and your work, which is very rare to see.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really listening to that voice because it was an easy path for me, and even then, I'm the neurologist doing this, and there aren't very many neurologists who actually do this. It's kind of rare
Yeah,
to even see us doing these kinds of things. So, I definitely listening to that voice and aligning to your heart, I think is really important, no matter what it is and, what field you're in or what you're doing, even if it's non-medical, it's always important.
absolutely. Follow your heart. I love that. And where can people learn more about you? Where can they learn more about all the work that you are up to?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a website at prolahealing.com. We're actually kind of rebranding to Ascend Regenerative.
Okay,
So
cool.
that's actually our Instagram handle is Ascend Regenerative too as well. So, they can always find more information on those two platforms.
Okay, awesome. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate being on the show. I enjoyed being here today.